My granny is my best friend. It's been that way since I was born. She lived most of her 93 years in and around Clemson University. So it was natural when I was a child to feel like I was going to go to Clemson. But what happened was my dad graduated from Clemson in engineering and he got offered a big job up north. So this little southern girl was raised above the Mason-Dixon line. I went back to see Granny every single summer and she was always my best friend. But over the years I had other really good friends that I honored and respected and trusted. They said some things about the South that I always defended tooth and nail because I knew they weren't true about my granny and my grandfather, except for the part about grits and fried chicken. But still, those things got into the crawl space of my heart. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I had decided I would go to the University of Delaware, which was right down the road. Easy peasy. But then my grandfather died suddenly. And one day I started a conversation with my dad. I said, "Dad, I'm thinking about Granny and Clemson." Well, what he heard me say was, "I'm going to Clemson." And I mean, in 2 minutes, he had us ushered out the door. We were on the way to the post box. My dad's 95. And to this day, he still has a way of showing anybody who will listen the merit of his thinking. Because when we got, this is a good example, when we got to the mailbox, he hands me the envelope and he said, "You've got to put it in," which I did. And the next day, my friends laughed me out of the school. "Lucy's gonna go down south." Now that just twisted my stubborn hair, so then I was convicted about going to Clemson. So in early August, when a bunch of my crazy friends were headed up to Woodstock, New York to go to this big rock and roll concert, I instead was in my little car at 17, white knuckles, following my dad's car 800 miles down into the deep South. And when we got there, Daddy only had time enough to help me throw all my stuff into my dorm room, and then he had to go back for some engineering conference. Going to drive through the night. But he hugged me and he said, "Kid, you have made me proud so far. Keep up the good work, and don't forget to go see your granny." And I said, "Daddy, I'm going to see Granny right now," which I did. And when I did, I proved to myself that I should not have been allowed to drive 800 miles by myself. Because when I got to her driveway, I don't know, I just hit it wrong. And I ended up running over her peonies. She came out the front door and yelled at the top of her lungs, "Honey, you ain't got enough brains to wide a shotgun with." She went back in the house and slammed the door. And I thought to myself, well, I'll just go back home. But you know what? I didn't know the way. So I gumptioned myself up. That's a granny term. And I went into the house, and there she was sitting at the dining room table smiling like nothing happened. And she just clattering away on a glass of sweet tea. And she handed me a teaspoon, and I started clattering too. And we began our great re-friendship. And I credit her with me graduating from Clemson with honors because she willed it to be so. And when I took my first job down in Atlanta as a teacher, she helped me pack and drove down behind me and helped me set up housekeeping. And we both agreed it wasn't going to be too bad because I was only 2 hours from home. See, Clemson had become my home. But I guess really it was my granny that was my home. And I went back up there every chance that I got. And we had a lot of fun, but the time I remember the most is the last time I ever drove into her driveway because it was a surprise to me. I didn't know it was the last time. When I got there, I knew something was up because Granny was out in the yard looking at the peonies. And I could tell by the look on her face something was going on. I got out of the car and I said, "Granny?" And she said, "Don't you come one step further until you hear what I have to say. If you don't like it, you just go on back to Atlanta." And I said, "Granny, what?" She said, "Next week I am moving to the Presbyterian Nursing Home of Clinton, South Carolina. And I said, Granny, I thought we had this all worked out and you were going to come live with me. She said, I am not going to have someone who loves me take care of me while I decline. And I said, well, all those people in that nursing home are going to love you and they're going to take care of you. She said, but that's different. I'm going to pay them. I started to cry, and she just pointed to her peonies, and she said, honey, someday I hope you'll have a yard, and you'll plant some peonies in memory of me. And I said, Granny, why are your peonies so important to you? She said, I never told you. I said, no, ma'am. And she said, these peonies are not my peonies, they're my grandmother's. And her grandmother's before her, probably. See, what happened was when Mama got married and moved out to the farm, she and her Mama went and dug these peonies up right here. And Mama carried them with her, planted them so she'd have something to remember her Mama by. She loved them all her childbearing years. And you know, when I was 12, that my dad died of cancer. But what you don't know is that Mama and I and the boys, we tried for a whole year to work the farm and save it, but we just couldn't do it. We lost it. And the day that we had to leave and move back to town, we went out to the yard and we dug up these peonies right here. And we carried them and buried them right here. And I did not know that my mama was going to live with me all the days of her life, and that my sweet husband and I were going to take care of her when she declined. And I do not want that for you. Now, do you understand me? I said, Granny, I promise you one thing. Someday I will have a yard, and I'll plant peonies just for you. And if you go to my Facebook page, where I put up a poem every single day, have for years, you'll often see my Granny's wisdom on display there. And sometimes we'll even see a picture of a peony. But I never could get a song for my Granny, which I really wanted to so that I could remember her, until this last crazy wild spring of 2020. I must have watched the news or something, I don't know, and I ran out to my garden all frustrated, and oh wow, I saw these big pink blossoms, and I started to pick them, and all of a sudden I looked up at the sky and yelled, Granny, what in the world do you think of this mess we're in? And this little song just came right straight through. And now my Granny has her own song. It's called What Granny Always Told Me. Granny told me the way to be and to live, to shine in the darkness and simply to give, share bread with the hungry and hope with the poor, be a friend to the lonely, keep open the door. Said there's no special method, live and let live. But if you want to get to heaven, you gotta learn how to give. She said Jesus loved the world and he hoped we would too. He spoke the good word so we'd know what to do. With the soft voice of mercy, he gave us his life. He rendered his spirit like wax in the night. So many good ways to be and to live. But if you want to get to heaven, you gotta learn how to give. Share bread with the hungry, hope with the poor, be a friend to the lonely, keep open the door. No special method, live and let live. But if you want to get to heaven, you gotta learn how to give. If you want to get to heaven, you gotta learn how to live. If you want to get to heaven, all you gotta do is give. Thank you, Granny, and thank y'all.